Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Lopez versus Claggett fight. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Lopez is 20-1 with 13 KOs and Claggett is 38-7-2 with 26 KOs. This fight is for the WBO World Super Lightweight title, and Lopez's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Ortiz, and Claggett's last fight was a win via stoppage in round 2 versus Barraza. This is in Lopez's home country of America. Lopez is 26 and Claggett is 35. Lopez's loss came via split decision versus Cambosa Jr. in 2021, and Claggett's losses have come versus Germain in 2021, Ulisse Jr. in 2019, O'Connor in 2018, Van Herden in 2016, Pono Marev in 2015, Lepelli in 2013, and Jacko Salem in 2011. He's been pro since 2008, and he's only been stopped once in that time. And to speak about what I've just spoke about there, obviously, like I say, just for the WBO title, the one in which Lopez holds, this fight was the one nobody really expected, nobody was really calling for or really wanted, but at the same time it definitely has the makings to be that of an entertaining fight. I think perhaps Claggett is getting a lot of disrespect, a lot more than what he deserves, and I think he's definitely going to come into this with this underdog mentality. And in the past he has been able to get big wins when things have been against him, and you know, when I think back to the Anion fight, that was a big fight that was against him, and there's been a few fights where he's come in as the underdog, and obviously, like I say, things have been against him and he's been able to get the win, but probably not quite on this scale where he's been able to get the win. But this fight is huge for him. Obviously, he's going to come in more determined than ever, and if he manages to get a win here, probably will end up giving Lopez a rematch, but it's a huge victory for him. It's absolutely massive, and even just the opportunity to be able to give Lopez a rematch would be making him loads of money again and everything like that. So this is just a huge opportunity for him, and I would say maybe it's not deserved. I think he's definitely paved the name. He's on a half decent win streak at the moment. Obviously he's been against a lot lesser opponents, but he's gotten the ranking. Lopez has said that nobody's really willing to fight him in and around the division at the moment. I don't necessarily know how much that is true, but when you think about the other options available, the other champions, especially that of like a Haney fight, or obviously everything going on with Garcia at the moment, and a lot of fighters being with Golden Boy and them not really always being too keen on working with Top Rank, perhaps there was some problems making a fight for Lopez, and Lopez seemingly wants to keep fighting, which I respect, saying just after the Taylor fight, I believe he said that he's retiring. So, you know, it seems like he's back wanting to fight, and he's back enjoying fighting at least, and this is very much a different test to the last fight of his. Obviously Ortiz did come in a little bit unexpected, just being so reluctant to really do loads, and was pretty much just on his bike throughout the whole fight. And Lopez, it was a relatively comfortable unanimous decision, to be honest. He was just kind of following Ortiz around the ring throughout the whole fight. You know, there was a few things that he could have done a bit better and could have pushed a bit more, and it wasn't really an amazing performance coming off the one versus Taylor, but nonetheless it was still a good win for him. And like I say, I just feel like Claggett is definitely going to offer something different, and obviously, like I say, he's coming off a stoppage victory, not against anywhere near the level of opponent or on the same stage, but he's still got a little bit of momentum to him now. And if he was to be coming in off a loss, and you know, then that definitely would have been a different mindset they'd be coming in with, I'm sure. But he's not had a loss in 3 years now, and this is such a huge opportunity for him. Obviously, he is on the much older side compared to that of Lopez, but that's another reason perhaps as to why Lopez might be overlooking Claggett. And I believe there is a lot of inconsistencies with Lopez a lot of the time, and we don't really know which version we're going to see of him. Normally, to be fair, if he has a bad performance, he'll come back and then the next fight have a really good performance. And I'm not saying the Ortiz one was a bad performance, but I don't think it was anything too crazy, so we might be due a really good performance from him. Obviously we'll have to wait and see. But to speak about them both individually as fighters, Lopez, of course, he's very skilled. I think his skill is that above Claggett's, to be completely honest. You can't win a fight just based off skill, but that skill is definitely there, that speed, that talent in general, that IQ that he possesses, and when he is really on it, you can see just how good of a fighter he really is. He's got great athleticism, he's very accurate with his work, he's got front foot counters which are amazing, plus back foot counters. I think his timing in general is just very, very good. He's often confident, and when he's confident, he can do some of his best work and really make an opponent look silly at times. He uses your momentum against you. He's got very good head movement throughout a lot of the time, and that can come through when he's being confident as well. I'm never really a fan of somebody who's just going to put themselves in a dangerous position to then try and show off head movement or anything like that. But I suppose if it works, it works, and so far it does work for Lopez. He can fight on the front foot or the back foot, mid-range or in close. He's got good shot variation, but also power variation in between which shots, the shots that he throws. Something I really like are his short distance punches. He can often just find that little bit of extended reach or extended explosiveness to just throw two punches in a very short space where you don't really expect another one to come, and that's what catches opponents off guard, and it's really nice to see. I hope I'm explaining it well enough. He's got very good balance, he's good at working angles, great reflexes, that kind of twitch fibre muscle of his is so sharp, and with the speed as well, that's another thing that makes him so good. He is quite patient when he wants to be as well, and with that IQ that he does possess, when he is patient and, like I say, really using the shots and the arsenal that he has and the skill that he has, he's a very, very talented fighter, and no wonder he has gotten such big wins in his career and why he is a world champion. And I suppose maybe negatives, like I say, maybe overlooking Claggett, and that would not surprise me realistically at all. So we'll have to wait and see if that's going to affect his performance or not. Like I say, he can be inconsistent and he can perhaps lose focus a little bit at times and maybe try play up a little bit too much, or just lose interest a little bit and perhaps cruise through rounds perhaps a bit at times where he can then get caught with shots by doing so. He, like I said, really could have cut off the ring more against Ortiz instead of just following him around and chasing him around the ring at times. He should have really tried his best to try cut Ortiz off, and then he could have really done some real damage, and he just didn't really seem too bothered. I think he was just comfortable going through, showing a good performance, but just not really pushing too much, anything too crazy, and really trying to slow his opponent down at all. And sometimes, like I say, he can struggle with slowing opponents down. Fighting at a slower pace, I don't necessarily think he's always the best at fighting at that of a slower pace, and Ortiz at times managed to slow the pace down because he was just moving around so much. And Claggett is somebody who's going to fight at a high pace, so I don't really think Lopez has got to worry about that too much. He can cross his feet, and so can Claggett, so that could make for a little bit of standing and trading perhaps at points. He is sometimes not willing to go backwards and will just plant his feet and take a shot, and Claggett's going to try and push him back, so he's going to be interesting to see how he reacts. Obviously, like I say, Lopez has got excellent front foot counters, so Claggett is probably going to be walked onto them quite a few times, but I don't know if that's going to deter Claggett too much, and we'll have to wait and see. And he can also have quite a low guard at times, Lopez. Speak about Claggett, like I say, pressure, high volume type fighter, changes levels very nicely, goes to the body very well, and opens up gaps and finds gaps from going to the body nicely. He's not always throwing every shot too powerfully like that of Lopez. He has good power variation and he goes to the body not too powerfully, but then goes to the head and uses that power into the head. He breaks you down. He doesn't smother his work when he's in close, which is a really nice attribute to have, and it just means that the only time you really see him tying up in a fight is when his opponent ties up with him to just try and stop the output that he's throwing. He's well conditioned, he's used to being the underdog like I mentioned, he can outwork, he has a high, tight guard, he fights best in close. I don't necessarily think he's the best at mid-range at times, and if Lopez can use his movement and keep at that of a mid-range, I think perhaps Claggett could struggle a little bit, and that's where he could be walked onto his shot going into the later rounds, and perhaps walked onto multiple shots going into later rounds, as he is just trying to walk you down, but we'll have to wait and see. He is always throwing, he brings the fight, and he's got a relatively nice shot, chop, jab. The speed is definitely not as the same as that of Lopez, and the reactions and the reflexes are not that as fast and as sharp as that of Lopez's, but in general, he is a very solid fighter. I do feel like this could definitely be that of a tough test for Lopez, and just finding the gaps and the angles is difficult against me like Claggett, so we'll have to wait and see where and how Lopez goes about doing it. He is going to be willing to stand and trade, and he's going to be there to be hit quite a lot, to be honest, but it's just finding, like I say, the gaps to do so. He can become a little bit predictable at times. There's a lot of his work just with one hand and then not really often letting the other hand go quite as much. He can be timed, like I mentioned, defensive movement and in general hand speed and things like that. There's a few things that are basic like that which he doesn't really necessarily possess quite so much. Cutting off the ring, I don't necessarily think he does that the best either. If he can't control the tempo, I think that's where, and can't game a rhythm, then I think that's where he struggles a little bit. And I suppose really making the fight his own and making opponents respect him and making close fights go his way is just something where he's never really been too good at. And I suppose it's a difficult thing to do. There has been fights in the past where it's been really close and he perhaps could have got the nod but didn't, and it's just making his fights his own. And obviously, he's got draws and stuff like that as well, and so we've definitely seen that from him. His footwork isn't really anything too crazy either, and he can also, like I say, stand straight on and be there to be hit. And when you are walking forwards and putting on the pressure, it's going to be interesting, like I say, Lopez front foot counters, if he's going to be able to just continuously do that all night or not. Lopez is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Lopez will win via unanimous decision. Like I mentioned, I think this is going to be a very tough test for Lopez. It's an underrated tough test, and I think Claggett is, like I say, going to bring the pressure and try and put it onto Lopez and perhaps get Lopez on the back foot at times, and even get Lopez trying his best to manoeuvre out of situations if he does get put in the corner or anything like that. But in the end, I think, like I say, Lopez is going to be the faster fighter. He's going to be able to see Claggett come in, see the little bits of predictable aspects of him, go into the later rounds, maybe being able to keep a distance a little bit better. Like I say, using his footwork, his head movement, and then being able to find them gaps eventually and not get a stoppage. I don't think he'll be able to stop Claggett. I don't believe that Lopez is really on the best of runs stoppage wise, and I don't think this fight is going to be something where he is going to be able to gain a stoppage. But still, I think in general his skill is that better of Claggett, and the skill, like I mentioned, doesn't always mean everything, but for this fight I believe it will in the end. And then who we could go on to fight? Haney, I think, still could be an option, but Haney's just seemingly vacated the belt or something. I mean, he's just let Puello become main champion, so I don't necessarily know what's happening with that. He just doesn't really seem to want to fight Sandor Martin, which I suppose makes sense because it's not really a big fight, and we've seen that from the fact that the purse bids haven't really been too crazy, and Aaron wants Lopez versus Haney next, so we could see perhaps that happen. If not, Barboza Jr. and Ramirez are two options. Obviously, they both are with Golden Boy, and Ramirez has just gone to Golden Boy and not come off the best of performances against Barthélemy, but nonetheless, Barboza Jr. also hasn't really come off the best performances, but they both are highly ranked, and so we could see that fight happen. I think they are big fights as well, but I would just like to see Lopez in big fights because he is a very talented fighter, brings a lot of eyes to him, is very entertaining in the process as well, and I just, like I say, believe that he should be in some of the biggest fights, and hopefully he will be from now on. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.